My name is Lauren Mitchell, 36 years old, living with my husband and two kids in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Denver, Colorado. It sounds like I have a perfect life, a stable job, a cozy house with a view of the Rockies, and two children, Ella, 11, smart and sensitive, and Mason, 8, energetic but tender-hearted, who fill my days with laughter. But one short text message last December pierced me with a pain I still can't shake. "Let's keep Christmas small this year, just close family. You understand, right?" That was the message from my mom. Just 14 words. No mention of my kids, no real explanation. But I understood. Close family meant David, my brother, his wife Monica, and their three kids. Me, the only daughter, and Ella and Mason were cast aside, as if our presence was an inconvenience. I stared at my phone for a long time, fingers trembling, unable to reply. I wondered, when did family become so narrowly defined? Christmas memories flooded back. For 11 years since Ella was born, we'd never missed a holiday at my parents' warm, familiar house. I could still see the kids crowded under the Christmas tree, its twinkling lights reflecting on their eager faces. Mom always overspiced her pumpkin pie, and Dad would doze off halfway through Elf at its funniest parts. It wasn't always perfect, but it was tradition. Yet this year, for lack of space, my kids were suddenly excluded. I couldn't help but think of the favoritism that had simmered for years. Growing up, David was the golden child. No matter what he did, my parents found excuses for him. My achievements, my efforts, were just expected. Now that pattern was spilling onto the next generation. When I told my husband, Mark, he placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Maybe your parents are just overwhelmed, hun. They might think a smaller group is easier." He always looked for excuses, but he'd never stood in my shoes. The daughter always overlooked. I pressed my lips together, saying nothing more. A quiet pain grew inside me. I decided not to tell Ella and Mason. I just said, "This year we'll have our own cozy Christmas." They looked briefly disappointed but didn't push back. They were too used to being second tier. On December 24th, I loaded neatly wrapped gifts into the car. I told Mark I just wanted to drop them off for my parents and David's kids, a minimal gesture of courtesy. He didn't stop me, just drove quietly. Denver was freezing that day, snow piling up on the roadsides, Christmas lights glowing warmly from houses along the street. As we turned onto my parents' familiar road, my heart tightened. A long line of cars filled their driveway, and lively music echoed from afar. Their front door was wide open, warmth and laughter spilling out. I stepped out, intending to drop off the gifts, but froze on the doorstep. Inside, David's kids were tearing into wrapping paper, Monica snapping photos, Dad pouring wine, Mom gleefully recording every moment. A lively, full party, clearly with plenty of space for everyone, except Ella and Mason. My chest ached. I turned, hurrying back to the car. Mark looked at me, silent, and opened the trunk for me to put the gifts back. The music and laughter from my parents' house rang out behind me, each sound stabbing my heart. I sat in the passenger seat, hands clenched, eyes dry. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I'd already shed too many tears over this favoritism. On the drive home, I glanced at Ella and Mason dozing in the back seat, my heart twisting. They'd done nothing wrong. They didn't deserve to feel excluded by their own family. That night, with the house asleep, I sat alone in the living room, the Christmas tree's lights casting a glow on the untouched gifts. I knew a decision was forming inside me. No more silence, no more enduring, no more accepting. I'm sharing this story not just to vent, but because I know some of you have felt overlooked or forgotten by family, or seen your kids face unfairness you couldn't fix. If you've been there, drop a comment below and let's share our stories. Nothing feels colder than coming back from a party you were never invited to. On December 24th, as our car pulled away from my parents' brightly lit street, snow falling thicker, I knew the chill gripping my heart wasn't from the Rocky Mountain wind. It was from the indifference of the people who taught me what family means. I didn't say a word to Mark. He glanced at my face in the rearview mirror, started to speak, but stopped. In the trunk, the untouched gifts sat like silent witnesses to a harsh truth. There was room for everyone, except Ella and Mason. Back home, I placed the gifts under our tree, next to the blinking lights. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat on the sofa, staring into the void, swallowing the lump in my throat. The feeling was like an icy undercurrent, quiet but relentless, eroding my trust layer by layer. That night, as Mark tucked Ella and Mason into bed, I sat still, listening to their giggles drifting downstairs. My kids didn't know they'd been excluded from a sparkling celebration. I didn't want them carrying that pain into their dreams. Christmas morning, I opened my phone to a flood of social media posts. Families in matching pajamas, kids beaming beside open gifts, adults raising wine glasses. I sighed softly. Then my eyes landed on the pile of unopened gifts under our tree. I grabbed my phone and snapped a photo. In that moment, I knew I had to do something, not just to express my feelings, but to name the truth. I typed, my hands trembling, but my heart steady. Some kids are the heart of Christmas. Others are forgotten because there's no room. We had room for truth, for love. Too bad no one was there with us. I tagged every relative and hit post. Within 15 minutes, my phone buzzed nonstop. A curt text from David. Lauren, what's this about? A long message from Monica. Lauren, I don't know what you're implying, but this isn't fair to your parents. If there's an issue, talk privately. Don't make it a public family matter. Then the phone rang. 3 missed calls, all from Mom. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Lauren, take that post down. You're making a fuss over nothing. Don't embarrass the family over petty things. Petty things. I gave a bitter laugh. To her, excluding 2 kids from Christmas memories was trivial, but to Ella and Mason, it was their first scar, a wound I couldn't let fester. I opened the app again and typed, if anyone wants me to take it down, apologize to Ella and Mason, not to me. I'm grown, but they're just kids. They deserve the truth from their grandparents. I hit post, feeling like I'd lit a candle in the dark, not dazzling, but enough to see my path. That evening, I checked our bank account, a habit from 5 years of quietly sending my parents $400 a month, sometimes more when they mention medical bills or utilities. I never asked for anything, never told Mark, because to me, it was my duty as their daughter. I scrolled down. The total hit me like a punch. Over $24,000 in 5 years, a hefty sum for a middle-class family like ours. Then I remembered last night's party, the twinkling lights on David's kids' faces, while Ella and Mason slept in the car. I clicked to cancel the recurring transfer. The screen flashed a confirmation. In that moment, I felt like I'd cut a cord that had strangled my heart for too long. Mark walked into the living room, seeing me frozen at the screen. You okay? He asked softly. I turned, eyes dry. I canceled it, no more money for them. He looked surprised but didn't argue. He just nodded and sat beside me. The void in my heart began to fill with a new resolve. If my blood family wouldn't protect my kids, I would. I'd show them that love's true value isn't in money or lavish parties, but in making room for each other in our hearts. That Christmas night, I sat by the window, watching snow blanket the front yard, lights from neighbors' houses glowing softly. I realized that sometimes the cold doesn't come from winter. It comes from the silence and denial of those we love most. But from that moment, I knew I could no longer be the silent one. If you've read this far, you've felt the tension, the hurt that my kids and I endured. I want to ask you directly, if this story resonates, leave a Y in the comments. If not, be honest and type N. They say sometimes you need an outside mirror to see yourself clearly. I never expected that after the heaviest, most silent days, that mirror would come from strangers, people uninvolved, but seeing the truth clearer than my own family. A few days after Christmas, as I drove Ella and Mason home from school, a small yellow envelope sat neatly at my doorstep. I was surprised. No sender's name, just familiar, shaky handwriting. To Lauren and the kids. I opened it to find a handwritten letter, the words slightly crooked but careful. Dear Lauren, I know the kids weren't at your parents' this Christmas. That night, from my window, I saw their house glowing with laughter, but my heart felt empty. Your kids don't need a crowded house, just an open heart. I hope someone realizes that soon. Love to the kids, Martha, your old neighbor. I stood frozen. Martha, over 70, had babysat Ella and Mason when I was stuck at hospital shifts. Her letter was simple, not accusing anyone, just stating what she saw. But that simplicity brought tears to my eyes. A neighbor saw their absence. Why did those closest to us choose to ignore it? That evening, as I tucked Ella in, she slipped me a small purple notebook. "Mom, I wrote this. Don't tell Mason, okay?" I opened it to her childish scrawl. "I don't need gifts. Just for Grandma and Grandpa to remember my name at Christmas. My friends show off pictures with their grandparents. I want that too, but I think they forgot me." I read it over and over, each word cutting into me. Ella wasn't angry, just sad. The quiet sadness of a child who knows they're forgotten is the worst. It's subtle, silent, but leaves deeper scars than any outburst. I snapped a photo of the page and sent it to Mom with one line. "This is what Ella wrote tonight. I think you need to read it." All night, my phone stayed silent. No reply. But I knew, somewhere in their house they were unsettled, maybe guilty but not brave enough to say sorry. A week later, when things seemed to have settled, something unexpected happened. Late one evening, I took Ella and Mason to the nearby supermarket for weekly groceries. The store was packed post-holidays, everyone restocking. I was picking out milk when Mason shouted, "Grandma and Grandpa!" I turned. Not far off, my parents stood at the produce aisle, as surprised to see us as we were them. Mason didn't hesitate, running to hug Grandpa's leg. Dad froze, then bent down, his hesitant arms wrapping around his grandson. His eyes glistened, as if a child's embrace had cracked through layers of pride. Ella stayed by my side, her eyes wary. She didn't rush over like her brother, just bit her lip. I understood. Ella was old enough to feel the distance, the hurt. Mom approached, looking awkward. "Lauren, it's been a while." I nodded, not accusing, not scolding. I let the moment speak for itself. Mason chattered about his new Lego set, still clinging to Grandpa's hand. A child's innocence made the scene almost unbearable. Adults can build walls, but a child's heart only knows love. We left the store in silence. I saw Mom glance back, her eyes lingering, as if wanting to say something but swallowing it. That night, as I tucked Mason in, he whispered, "I still like Grandma and Grandpa, Mom. I think they like us too. They just forgot." I choked up, unsure how to explain to an 80-year-old heart so innocent yet so forgiving. His words echoed in my mind. They just forgot. Maybe it was that innocence that made the bitterness sting more. Adults can make excuses, choose silence, but kids just love and hope to be loved back. That night, by the window, I held Martha's letter, Ella's notebook, and thought of Mason's sudden hug. 3 voices from the outside, yet they woke me up like never before. I realized my parents' silence didn't just hurt me, it was leaving marks on my kids' childhood. And then a thought sparked. If they couldn't face the truth themselves, I'd make them. If you want to hear more stories like mine and relate to the struggles I'm facing, check out my previous videos on this channel. Have you ever received a message so long it could fill a dictionary, yet every word served one purpose, to make you doubt yourself? That's exactly how I felt that afternoon when my phone lit up with Monica's name, my sister-in-law. Her message started with a familiar line. "Lauren, I really hope you and the kids are doing okay." Just a polite opener, but then came a carefully crafted cascade. There must have been some misunderstanding this Christmas. Honestly, no one meant to exclude Ella and Mason. It's just that your parents thought a smaller gathering would be easier, and David had a lot of guests visiting. I'm sure you understand. Also, you know the family's received so much financial support from you over the years, which shows your love for them. But love shouldn't be measured by money, right? We're family. Let's move past this. I sat frozen, reading it. Her words were like a silk curtain draped over a harsh truth. But the more I read, the clearer their polished falseness became. Monica didn't apologize. Instead, she reduced Ella and Mason's pain to a minor misunderstanding. She even slyly brought up my financial support for my parents over 5 years, as if it were my default duty. In that moment, I saw the wall rising. One side held the obvious truth, the other a narrative twisted to obscure it. I didn't want to keep this to myself. I screenshot the message and sent it to 3 trusted relatives: Aunt Laura, my mom's sister, and my cousins Aaron and Julia. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. Aaron, Lauren, she's gaslighting you. That's not an apology. Julia, I can't believe this. We read it and got chills. They're just scared of looking bad, not caring about the kids. Aunt Laura called. Honey, I've been quiet too long. I've seen how they treat you and the kids unfairly. You have every right to speak up. I sat, listening, a wave of relief washing over me. For years, I'd wondered if I was too sensitive, if I was jealous of David and seeing favoritism everywhere. But now, with outsiders confirming it, I knew I wasn't imagining things. That night, I reread Monica's message. Each word pricked at memories. My parents complaining about hard times, me quietly sending money, them asking for help with medicine, roof repairs, utility bills. I did it all without complaint. Yet now, it was lumped together as proof of my devotion. But family isn't a duty. It's not a financial contract. And it's certainly not silence that covers up injustice. I opened the messaging app and typed short and plain, Monica, I posted the truth. If it bothers you, ask yourself why. As for money, that ended the day my kids were left out. I hit send. After that, the air felt heavy with silence. No one replied. No one called. No one argued. It was as if the whole family had chosen to build a wall, not of brick, but of silence. But that silence wasn't peaceful. It was leaden, suffocating, making each day feel like walking on thin ice. I could sense it. Behind that wall, they were talking, scheming, trying to rewrite the story in their favor. In the days that followed, I heard through relatives that David and Monica were telling everyone I was overreacting, seeking attention, that it was all just an exaggerated misunderstanding. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. The more excuses they made, the clearer their lack of remorse became. One evening, Ella sat beside me on the sofa, clutching her notebook, hesitant. Mom, I see you're sad a lot. Is it because Grandma and Grandpa don't like us? I hugged her tightly, keeping my voice steady. No, Ella, it's not about you. Sometimes adults are scared to admit they're wrong, so they stay silent. But that silence doesn't mean you're not important. You're always important to me, to Dad, to Mason. Ella nodded, but I saw the lingering sadness in her eyes. That moment cemented it. I couldn't let this wall of silence stand forever. If they chose manipulation, I'd choose truth. If they chose silence, I'd choose to speak. Some days, you think everything's frozen forever. Then suddenly, a small crack appears in the ice. Sometimes, that crack comes from the person you thought would never admit fault. One late fall afternoon, as the last golden leaves fell in the yard, I heard a knock. I opened the door and froze. David, my brother, stood there. No Monica, no kids, just him, hands in his coat pockets, face pale like he hadn't slept. Lauren, can I come in? His voice was hoarse. I hesitated. For months, I'd built an invisible fence to protect myself and my kids from more hurt, but I stepped aside, letting him in. We sat in the living room, the air thick as morning fog. Mark sat with me, while Ella and Mason were upstairs, chattering over homework. David stared at the floor for a long time. Then, suddenly, he looked up, eyes red. I'm sorry, Lauren. The whole Christmas thing. It was my fault and Monica's. I told Mom and Dad the house was too small, that fewer kids would make the party easier to manage. I thought it'd be less chaotic. I didn't think about Ella and Mason. I was so wrong. I was stunned. All these months I'd thought my parents made the call, with David just benefiting. Now he was admitting he'd pressured them. I don't know what else to say but sorry. Sorry to you. Sorry to Ella. Sorry to Mason. His voice broke. And then, the unimaginable, David cried. My brother, always favored, always strong, sat before me, shoulders shaking, vulnerable as a child. My heart was a tangle of conflict. Part of me wanted to cling to my anger, to remind him of Ella's silent tears, Mason's empty gaze when he learned he wasn't invited. But another part cracked open at the word sorry, something I'd waited so long to hear. Mark touched my shoulder as if saying, "Don't miss this chance." I sighed, looking at David. You didn't just hurt me, you left a scar on my kid's childhood. Do you know what Ella wrote? That she didn't need gifts, just for Grandma and Grandpa to remember her name at Christmas. Mason said they just forgot. Do you understand what that means? David bowed his head, tears streaming. I do. And I don't know how to make it up. But I want to start today if you'll let me. Just then, Ella and Mason bounded downstairs calling, "Mom, we're done!" They froze when they saw David. I saw Ella's wary eyes, Mason's hesitation. David knelt, looking into their eyes. "I'm sorry. I messed up by not having you with Grandma and Grandpa at Christmas. It wasn't your fault, it was mine." Ella stood still, lips pressed tight. Mason blinked, then suddenly stepped forward and hugged David. "I still want to play with you." In that moment, I choked up. Kids forgive faster than adults, they just know love. The next day, David took Ella and Mason to the park. I watched from a distance, heart both anxious and hopeful. He ran with Mason chasing a ball, bought Ella ice cream, sat for hours listening to them talk about school. Ella's smile, Mason's ringing laugh, sounds I hadn't heard so fully in ages. I stood there, the autumn wind cold but my heart warm. For the first time in months, I saw real joy in my kids' eyes. And it all started with an apology, a real one, no cover-ups, no manipulation. That evening, when David brought them back, he said, "I know one sorry doesn't erase everything, but I'll prove it with actions. If you give me a chance, I want to rebuild." I looked at him, then at Ella and Mason's beaming faces. The wall of anger inside me began to crack. Maybe hope wasn't as out of reach as I'd thought. That night, by the window, I wrote in my journal, "Change doesn't come from outsiders, but from those who hurt us. When they cry, when they admit fault, our hearts get a chance to forgive." They say time can blur wounds, but I learned time only opens doors. The choice to heal or let scars form is ours. One winter morning, almost a year after that Christmas fallout, an unexpected call signaled that choice had finally been made. The phone rang as I prepped breakfast for Ella and Mason. Seeing Mom on the screen, my heart tightened. For months, we'd exchanged only curt, cold texts. I answered, and her voice trembled. "Lauren, we were wrong. This year, we're renting the community hall. There's room for everyone. You and the kids, you have to come." I fell silent. Those simple words were ones I'd waited a year for. For the first time, Mom didn't dodge, didn't blame a misunderstanding, didn't mention no room. She just admitted they were wrong. On December 25th, Denver was blanketed in white snow, but the community hall near St. Paul's Church glowed like a lighthouse. Cars lined up neatly outside, Christmas music poured from speakers, and the smell of hot food filled the air. I walked in, holding Ella and Mason's hands tightly. Inside, David and Monica were setting out roast turkey. Aunt Laura brought apple pie. Cousins chattered as they placed mashed potatoes on the table. No more cramped house. Instead, an open space where everyone had a place. At dinner, Dad stood, holding a microphone, hands shaking. His eyes swept the room, lingering longest on Ella and Mason. "Kids, Grandma and Grandpa, we're sorry. We let you feel hurt you didn't deserve. But thank you for giving us another chance to make it right. Today, we're here, and we start again." The air stilled. Ella burst into tears, running to hug Grandpa. Mason quietly held Grandma's hand, whispering, "I still love you." In that moment, I saw the wall of silence that had stood for months crumble, replaced by tears glistening on weathered faces. I stood, my voice choked but clear. "Mistakes can pull us apart, but love brings us back. I don't want the past erased. I just want us to cherish each other more from now on." David bowed his head, Monica wiped tears, and the hall echoed with soft applause. That dinner felt like no boundaries ever existed. The kids sat at a long table, laughing loudly. Adults passed dishes, sharing old memories. I looked around, and for the first time in ages, I saw understanding in their eyes instead of caution, warmth instead of distance. No more golden child or lesser, no more bitter silence, just a big family around a long table, letting laughter fill the voids that tore us apart last year. That night, back home, Ella whispered, "Mom, this year I felt Christmas for real." I smiled, hugging her close. I knew this journey hadn't erased the scars, but we'd chosen the path of forgiveness. And that's the only way love finds a place. Looking back, I realized the most precious thing isn't lavish Christmas parties or expensive gifts. It's the fairness and true love we give each other. Mistakes cracked my family, but they also taught us to face them, to apologize, to forgive. I learned family only exists when there's room for everyone. No golden child, no outcasts in our own home. My story might resonate with someone out there who's felt overlooked or seen their kids forgotten in their own family. I hope hearing this you find faith that love can heal, as long as we dare to speak and forgive. If this story touched you, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to follow my channel for more emotional journeys. Because sometimes your story might inspire someone else.